to the Total Game Basketball Academy podcast, hosted by Tony J. Coleman, sports and education consultant. Our focus is to educate and support families of student athletes as they navigate through the recruiting process, the NIL, and life after sports. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tony Coleman TGBA. And now, here's Tony.
Well, good morning and welcome to another episode of the Total Game Sports Media Podcast. I am your host, Tony Coleman, and today I have a very special guest. I have one of the members of the board of Total Game Sports Media here with me. Her name is Dr. Melissa Figueroa Douglas, and we're going to talk about educational leadership and how to implement strategies that will make platforms enhance themselves and be able to penetrate and change cultures for the young people that we know today in education. And she also is the founder and CEO of MJD Consulting. And she's going to actually explain a little bit more about what that means and what that's about. And then we're going to get into talking about some different strategies as we, try to bring about information and awareness to you all to help in those areas of enhancing leadership, enhancing innovative and creative ideas and strategies within organizations, school districts, and the like. So, Dr. Melissa, how are you today?
I am so great. Thank you. Thank you to the Tony Coleman for inviting me to your podcast. It's such an honor to be here today.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your consulting firm and some of the things that you really are passionate about and what's on your heart today.
Absolutely. So I want to preface by saying I'm a girl from Queens, New York. Okay. So you might hear a little bit of an accent. And being from Queens, New York, and then fast forward, starting my career as a biology teacher in the inner city of Philadelphia, I want to say that we learned early on what equity, inclusion, and belonging is and is not. So when I think about my own journey as this little girl from Queens, where I was in a classroom and teachers would say, I get paid whether you learn or not.
Yeah.
And I think about the profound impact that that has on students. Now, everyone doesn't have that same resilience or what we call grit, right? So sometimes the words you say, they plant seeds in your heart and you believe those things, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you are not reaffirmed at home, if you don't have a foundation. So that's what led me to education. That's what led me on this journey to fight and advocate for equity, inclusion, and belonging for all students.
Wow, that is a phenomenal response. And something you said seeds being planted, in the minds of a young child, and they're sitting in front of adults, people that they aspire and look up to. So they are taking in everything that they say as gospel, so to speak, right? Yeah. So it's so important in those things that are being conveyed and said to them, as you try to build them up and teach them the different life skills necessary to be successful, young adults. And man, that was really big, that part, because many times we don't view it as something that's really big, but it really starts the growth on the inside by, giving those, those seeds early on. It's so impressionable. Yeah. I have a, because of the fact that you brought up diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's a video clip I want to play. And I'm interested to see what your response is going to be once you view this video clip. And we'll talk a bit more about this DEI. Okay. So let me put this on, and I can't wait to hear your response on this.
Okay. Let's see it.
Yeah.
I ask you two really quick questions. Do you think that Holocaust education in our schools is a DEI program? There's no card for that. That's just yes or no.
I can look at it, whatever card.
Holocaust education, is it a
Thank you very
DEI?
much.
You can have a press conference to say whatever you want. I just need a quick answer to
Your
this.
soliloquy
Is
very
Holocaust,
informative.
because this is my time, is Holocaust education a DEI program?
No,
Is African American Studies a DEI
I
program?
think I answered that with one.
I'm
of the
asking
other
it again.
cards. Listen, we should be
Just
able,
yes or no?
we should be able to teach
My
courses in their
point is they
entirety.
are DEI programs, both of them, because students need diversity, equity, and inclusion to understand their environments. So both Holocaust education and the teaching of African American history are important, which is why the state of Connecticut requires it in our social studies curriculum. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You can't support one
The
without
gentlelady's
supporting the
time has
other.
expired.
And looking at what happens in the schools and actually deferring to teachers, parents who are on curriculum committees, local boards of education and states who actually do the hard work
The
and
gentlelady's time
listening
has
to what
expired.
they say
I appreciate
would be
the
incredibly helpful in
passion,
this
but
role.
it's time to move on.
I'm going to ask you two.
Okay. So just to recap really quickly, that was Johanna Hayes, who's a congresswoman, in Connecticut. And you had the Secretary of Education that she was pretty much giving it to, and a very interesting exchange. So tell me, Dr. Douglas, what's your thoughts on this?
Oh, that's a great picture. Well, I want to say that it's unfortunate that people are so misinformed. And we want to start with the misinformed philosophy, right? Because when I think about DEI, when I think about diversity, when I think about equity, inclusion, belonging, when I think about these terms, oftentimes, unfortunately, they are weaponized and people don't know what they represent. So we are in these silos and we are in this social political climate where if you are for something, that means you represent this side. And if you're against something, you represent this side. But guess what? No one knows how to define the something. And it's extremely detrimental when we think about systems, when you think about education, and you think about the opportunities that are lacking because of this misinformation, which really propelled me to start the MJD Consulting agency, because we have so many people that are misinformed and they believe that they are advocating for, something that they believe deeply in, but can't define it. So when you ask someone to define, well, what's your definition of equity? And you'll hear different responses.
Yes.
But we are in such a heightened social, political climate where these terms are unfortunately being weaponized. And when I think about the opportunity that is being missed, it just, oh my goodness, it lights this fire inside of me to, at minimum, educate the people around us, because there is this miseducation. But then there are some people that know exactly what it means. They know exactly what it represents and are trying to gatekeep, block, be barriers to people that are historically marginalized and those opportunities that lie ahead. And when I think about the work, I think about this quote from Arthur Chan, and diversity is a fact. You can probably tell me the demographics of your school district, and I could tell you the demographics of my school district, and that's a fact, right? But when we think
Right.
about equity, equity is a choice. So
Okay.
are we going to be equitable in our decision making? Are we going to be equitable in our strategies? Are we going to be equitable in offering rigorous course offerings? Are we going to be equitable in thinking about how to engage parents, families, and stakeholders? That's equity. And when we think about inclusion, inclusion is an action. What are we doing? What are we doing to build more inclusive ecosystems,
Okay.
right? And guess what
Yeah.
the outcome is? The outcome is belonging. The outcome is belonging. The outcome, there is no one, it should be no one on this face of the earth that says they are against belonging. You are
Absolutely.
against people feeling a strong sense of connection to thrive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we
Yeah.
think about that, and we think about, it's almost like the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we think about that staircase to success. Belonging comes before success. Belonging comes before self-actualization. So for us to really, really meet our full capacity, that sense of belonging is so necessary. Think about it. We look for it our whole life. We look for that sense of connection and belonging,
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
community, right?
Yeah.
To help us thrive and move forward successfully and holistically to our full destiny.
Absolutely. 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 So, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I heard you say there's a big difference between what equity and equality is. And oftentimes people get the two confused, right? So, real quick, what is the big difference or the difference between the two, equity and equality? And I know you hit on a lot of points about exactly what equity was, but for those who may need to really go back and really hear the difference between the two, equity, equality, and then how does that, apply when it comes to scenarios or situations in an organization that they may think should be equity or should be equality, but it's equity, if that make any sense.
Perfect sense. And you are absolutely correct when you say that. People conflate those terms all the time as if they represent the same thing. So the easiest way to really differentiate the two terms is, I have two children. My son is 6, my daughter is 13. My daughter has longer legs, my daughter is faster, and my son is shorter and can't run as fast as my daughter. But equality is saying you both start at the same start line and
Right.
are expected to finish at the same time. That's what equality is.
Okay.
Equity is saying, well, we want to consider the factors here. We
Okay.
want to consider that he is significantly younger. We want to consider that he is significantly shorter. So we're going to give him a jump start. Now, that jump start gives him the opportunity to at least have a chance to
Okay.
be at the finish line around the same time, at the same time, because that's what it's about. It's about having access to an opportunity. But when we think about equity and we think about equality, we also have to consider systems that have been put in place that have been barriers to historically marginalized groups. When we think
Yeah.
about systems of a nation and we think about enslavement, hundreds of years, when we think about redlining and we think about the systems that were created to hold some people back and advance others, equity says, let's even the playing field so everyone has access to the same opportunity. and
Okay.
hopefully the same outcome.
You know, I love that word, opportunity. And that's a word that is often used on this podcast when we're
Yes.
talking about, the education and sports and how things are related, with the athletes and the institutions and organizations around the country. You know, having the opportunity to be included in all of these different things that we talk about as it relates to education and moving in whatever sector that you are striving to move into. We have to protect the opportunity for our young people because there's so many barriers and different infrastructures that are blocking or trying to block the opportunity. We got to make sure that we try to preserve and protect the opportunity for the young people to be able to, still walk in those paths and be successful. And with that being said, I want to ask you, about addressing barriers. What are some of the common barriers you encounter when you promote equity and inclusion in educational settings? And how do you help organizations overcome these barriers?
Oh, it's a really good question and a really loaded question. Um, you know, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, um, when I was in high school, you could not tell me that I was not going to be a news anchor. I just knew I was going to be a news anchor. I woke up every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, to watch Roz Abrams. She was that girl,
Uh-huh.
and you couldn't tell me that that wasn't going to be my trajectory. And I
Yeah.
can remember speaking to my guidance counselor at my high school. And I probably was like a junior or a sophomore. It was around like one of those important times of high school where you're preparing for your senior year, which prepares you for college. And I knew I wanted to go to college and I knew I wanted to be a news anchor.
Mhm.
And I remember sharing with my counselor that I wanted to be a news anchor and I wanted to study broadcast journalism. And that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted recommendations on the best schools in the tri-state area to attend.
Mm.
And you know what his response was to me? His response was, "Well, are you considering anything else? Because you have a really heavy New York accent. And when you go into broadcast journalism, you can end up anywhere. You can end up on the West Coast. You could end up in the Midwest." And he then said, this is what sealed the deal. He said
Uh-huh.
to me, "Girls from here don't do careers like that."
Wow.
And I didn't have the confidence that I have now.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
what he said, I let resonate, I ruminated on, and I believed, and I never pursued that. So to
Mm,
answer your question, the biggest barrier sometimes are people, the things
mm.
that we say to our young people
Yeah.
that they believe because
Mm.
they have such an admiration or respect, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
you and your profession, they believe what you say. So sometimes the biggest barrier is we have to look in a mirror, are the adults in the room? And
Yeah.
I will say the best way to mitigate that is to
Mhm.
be informed through professional learning. And
Yeah.
that's where MJD comes in because you don't know what you don't know. But
Right.
once you know and then you do it, it's called
Yeah.
weaponizing. That's what it's
Yeah.
called. It's called being an intentional barrier.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's good. That's really good. That's really good. So, one of the things I've been meaning to tell you is that I admire so much about you. And, just talking to you about a lot of different, scenarios and different topics, your background, you are a PhD. You are a doctor in education,
EDD.
EDD. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
EDD, and you know, in order to achieve that, there was something on the inside of you that drove you to that. And then, discipline, something that you wanted to have so that you could, be better and also be able to, show your truth and your expertise in this field. So it really takes really strong stamina to pursue this goal and to achieve it. So I just wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you.
It takes a lot, and I understand that from being on that side, in education and, going to school and trying to go after these degrees and all these different things. It's a lot. It's a lot, and being a mother and, you're trying to work and do all these other things, and to have a drive like that is very commendable. So I just wanted to make sure that I told you today that I really commend you for that effort and just going the extra mile to achieve that goal, because that's a huge goal.
Thank you.
So talking about that, let's take a look at leadership in consulting. Okay, so how do you define effective leadership in the consulting realm, right? Especially when you're working with schools and working with different organizations and things of that nature. How do you define the effective leadership when you're operating in that realm?
Yeah, it's almost like sports, right? And coaching.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people are able to predict who's going to be the winner of a Super Bowl. Oftentimes you're able to determine who is going to win a game based on the coaching and the leadership of that team. Then they start talking offense and defense, but it starts with leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about my journey, even into leadership, pivoting from classroom teacher, assistant principal to central administrator, and climbing those ranks, I think about the valuable lessons that I learned from amazing leaders, dynamic leaders that encourage you to be your best and reach your highest potential, the potential you don't even necessarily always see in yourself, but they push you, but not push you with like aggression. They push you with care. They push you into your greatness with direction, clear, concise direction, because they give you something and they give you a vision. So that's what it starts with. Well, what is the vision, right? And when you speak to some people and you ask them, well, what is the vision of your organization? Are they able to tell you? And if they're not, then that's a problem, because the vision, just like a game, is to win, right? But how do you win? And what do you stand for, right? You think about that, and what are you striving towards is the vision. What are you striving towards? What is your mission? And people are like, to show up every day? No, it is so much bigger than that when we think about that. So just having an understanding of your mission, your vision, what are your priorities as an organization? What are your priorities as a school district? So we have 500 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. We don't have that many in Delaware. However, every district, I've never come across a district that said they want to be the worst performing. Never. We always have districts that want to thrive. They want to see their students do well academically. They want to address the needs of the whole child. So we have the same want. The how, right, is the question. How do we get How do we get there? So depending on what your priorities are, you want to have an understanding. If you don't, first of all, you don't have any priorities, you want to establish them. And then you want to make everyone aware of what they are. And you want to use data. You want data to drive these conversations. What does the data say about student achievement and student growth? What does the data say about staff feeling appreciated, feeling like they belong? You know, like, so we start there and then build out. And it's just interesting, but I'm sure we all have a story. We
Yeah.
have that story of that leader that, put the battery in our back to be and represent the best that we absolutely can. And then we have that other story where,
Yeah.
I considered walking away based on
Yeah.
the leadership.
Right.
So, really equipping
Mhm.
our leaders to demonstrate
Mhm.
um, the fullest potential with the right tools.
Yeah. You know, I love the way you started that off when you said it's just like sports, and you got to have a plan. So, as you were saying, what are you trying to achieve, your overall goal and objectives? And you want to win and be successful, but how are you going to get there? And that's where the strategic planning comes into place. It's a process. There needs to be a system in place. There needs to be steps, right? And that after each step, how do we measure and evaluate, if we're headed in the right direction? So you mentioned the data and, just being driven that way and, just being mindful. And you got to know each and every step as you go. And it's not about, just jumping into something. You got to really take your time and really think that thing through. So yeah, I love that. I love that answer. I love that. Come on, doctor, bring it.
Yes.
Yeah. So in this process, right, of strategic planning, missions and visions, there needs to be some type of building of a culture, right? So you got to build a culture. So what kind of culture are we trying to build? So, let me hear from you the steps. So what steps do you recommend, organizations, looking to build a more inclusive culture, and how can, leaders facilitate this particular process, in trying to build that culture?
Absolutely. That culture is probably like the most important piece to the puzzle. Because when you think about the culture of any organization, it needs to be a healthy culture where
Yeah,
people feel like their voices are being heard, where people feel valued.
yeah,
Because there's nothing like being a part of a team that seems to be thriving surface level, but there's like this infighting. There is this there's these like wars that nobody necessarily sees, but you feel the impact from the inside. And
yeah.
that causes situations to implode, right? Like, so we want to make sure that while striving
Mhm.
for that vision and adhering to a mission and you know uh, analyzing our priorities and data, that we are creating a space where people can thrive and want to feel like they want to give their absolute best. So oftentimes we speak about like this sense of belonging for students, but that sense of belonging is also needed for professional staff. You know,
Mhm.
we absolutely need to create spaces as leaders to ensure that you are also encouraging the next generation to lead, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Creating succession plans within your organization where
Hmm.
it's just not, the few, the chosen few, but who are we preparing to be up next, right?
Yeah,
And so that culture is probably the most vital piece to the puzzle, creating a space where you feel valued, you feel appreciated, you feel heard, and you
yeah.
feel that you are impacting your organization in a really positive way.
Wow. Yes, yes, you got to make people feel wanted and valued. You know what I mean? They're gonna be more interested. They're gonna be more driven. They're gonna be more open to hear and listen and follow. What the plan is when you make them feel inclusive. And oftentimes leadership, for some reason, they don't care about what the driving force or what the body or the people that's doing the work, how they feel. It's like, look, this is the way that we do it, and either jump on board with it or you can go somewhere else, but building a culture of inclusiveness and, understanding and value is tremendous. And I believe I totally agree with you, in having that, so with that being said, there has to be an inspiration, for those, and coming from leadership, coming from the top, and you as a leader, Dr. Melissa, your inspiration for change, so some of your personal insights. And I know you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but if you could, expound on a little bit more about the inspiration for change. So what inspires you to continue advocating for equity, for inclusion, in education, and also when you're doing your consulting with, different organizations or school districts, and what keeps you motivated, in this process, trying to be that inspiration for others?
Yeah, the biggest inspiration for me would be, I don't want another student to feel the rejection that I felt when I was sharing my dream with my counselor. So that is part of the driving force. But then when I step outside of that and I think about my own children, and I think about the thousands of students that I've, met, taught, reached in my more than 20 years in education, I think about their future, and I think about the opportunities that they could have access to if I continue to advocate and I continue to provide the tools, the understanding for other educators to have a deeper understanding on their impact on our students and the trajectory of their future. That's my biggest driving force.
Wow, that's a big drive right there. Taking it from personal, to making sure, look, I know what I had to deal with. If I can prevent anyone, any other young person from having those same experiences that I had, I want to prevent that. That's huge. And that just goes to show what type of person that you are, thinking of others and giving back. As very commendable and very respectable. And, with this consultancy that you have, what advice, for aspiring consultants who see and hear your story, of giving back and the reasons why you're advocating, right? So what would you say to them? What advice would you give, to someone looking to pursue a career in consulting, focused on educational equity and also organizational strategies for, communities, school districts, organizations that are trying to have an impact in communities? What would be your advice to them?
My advice would be to focus on your why. Focus on your why and just get started. I think oftentimes as people, we want the website to be perfect. We want our social media platforms established. Just get started. Get started and do the work that's important. That other stuff you can build on the way. The most important thing to build is understanding. The understanding of the people who are leading different organizations, and then other people that are educating, other people that are in front of our students, other people in other industries that can benefit from the services that only you can offer. Because I think sometimes what we do is we think, oh, well, I know like 4 people that have a consulting business. I know 6 people that specialize in equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I know 10 people that specialize in what you think you want to bring to the world. But the last time I was driving on a main road, I saw McDonald's across the street from Burger King, across the street from Chick-fil-A, across the street from a Popeyes. And guess what? They're not worried about what that person or business across the street is doing. You know what they're focused on? Delivering the best product or products that they have to offer. So don't look around too much, because if you look around too much, you'll talk yourself out of your dream.
Wow.
Keep your why at the forefront. Think about what you specialize in. Make it so good that only you could deliver it.
Wow. That why. That's good. That's really good. You know, it just reminds me, I'm so glad you're on the board. At Total Game Sports Media, I'm so glad you're on the board, because, you know, that wisdom and that focus and that reminder of the why. Like, what are we doing? Like, why what is this? Like, why are we doing this? And what are you moving toward? And what are you doing every day? What do you go, because it's that why. It's the why that we said from the very beginning that drives us and pushes us. That is so excellent. As we begin to wind down, Dr. Douglas, with this episode today, and of course we're going to get back together. We're going to pick up and we're going to continue talking about these different things and listen to all the different expertise and wisdom that you have to share in this area. And before we actually end this thing, for today, I want to make sure that you let the audience know how can they get in contact with MJD Consulting, any event that they need strategies for organizational leadership and all those other things that your firm provides as a service. So I just want to make sure that we are putting that information out that, all right, you need help, I can come in, troubleshoot, I can, give, my spin on what's going on within your organization. How can we change how we focus on the why? How can we focus on all those different engagements that you are trying to achieve in your own company, business, school district, individual schools, organizations within the community, or what have you. And, and as we continue to, wrap things up, I want you to definitely let us know, the legacy, of leadership, for Dr. Melissa Douglas, and what do you want to create and what do you want to leave behind as your legacy? Tell us how we can get in touch with you. Give us that legacy conclusion, and we're going to wrap this up until next time. So it's all you.
Thank you so much for having me. You can find me, my information, my phone number, mailing address, and website at leadwithmjd.com. leadwithmjd.com. And if you have any inquiries, there's a phone number there where I can be reached. And you can also leave something online. I do look forward to connecting and collaborating to improve work, continue to strive towards the systems that promote excellence, equity, inclusion, belonging for all. That's the legacy.
Wow. There you have it, folks. Dr. Melissa Figueroa Douglas. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast this morning and sharing your wisdom and also all the works that you've done and continue to do here in this Delaware Valley. We so appreciate you, and we wish you nothing but success. And thank you for being a part of the Total Game Sports Media and the Academy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's podcast. If you know anyone that will benefit from what we share, have them subscribe to our YouTube channel at Tony Coleman TGBA. Remember, on the Total Game Basketball Academy with Tony J. Coleman,